Backyard bird feeding. It's a convenient way to enjoy wildlife from your own yard, providing year-round entertainment for the whole family. In fact, it's one of the fastest-growing outdoor hobbies in the United States today, second only to gardening. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it's estimated that more than 50 million Americans participate in this pastime. And experts say there are some basic guidelines that should be followed when creating your own bird-friendly habitat.
Well, if you're trying to attract birds to your backyard, there's really 4 basic things you need to consider to provide everything that they need. They need food, they need water, they need cover to hide from predators, and they need places to raise young. So food can come in the source of bird feeders, seed feeders, nectar feeders, suet feeders. Water, bird baths, some type of water feature that you put in your yard, again, to keep it clean is very important. Cover usually comes from the form of your plantings, your landscaping in your yard. It's a term we use called birdscaping, which actually is looking at providing native species that are helpful to the birds, not just from a food standpoint, but also from a place to hide from predators. Places to raise young. A lot of birds will use birdhouses, but a lot of birds do not use birdhouses. So again, providing good shrubs, trees, a variety of different places that birds can build their nests is also essential to having a good habitat for birds.
Americans have been enjoying feeding wildlife for over 100 years, but with so many options available today, knowing how to choose the right products can be overwhelming.
It can be a little overwhelming when you walk into a store and you see all kinds of different feeders to know which one to get first. There's so many different types of feeders that provide different types of food that are going to attract different types of birds. So one of the things to look for is to really know up front kind of what type of birds you have, or if you don't know, at least look at something that's going to be fairly generic that would attract a wide variety of different birds. And usually it's actually the seed that attracts the birds versus the feeder. So a good mixed seed or just black oil sunflower seed and a feeder that allows you to feed that seed is something to look for.
Today, there is a wide selection of beautiful and affordable feeders designed to attract all types of feathered friends to a yard. Since 1958, Perky Pet has been one of the premier suppliers of quality, functional feeders that address the demands of every bird hobbyist, from beginner to advanced.
The 2 main types of feeders are the chalet or hopper, or the tube feeder. The chalet is a rectangular shaped feeder that has a wide perch that appeals to many different birds and holds a wide variety of seed. The tube feeder is a cylindrical shaped feeder that appeals more to the songbirds. Now, tubes are designed specifically for a type of feed. It either has a sunflower seed or mixed seed mix, or you also have a cylindrical hole for a finch style feeder.
Well, if you're trying to put out different feeders for different types of birds, it does help to know what type of birds you're going to have around. And there's a seasonality involved with a lot of birds that are attracted to feeders. For example, hummingbirds tend to migrate out of the U.S. for the most part. And so in the wintertime, you're probably not going to put out nectar feeders for hummingbirds. But during the summer months, and anywhere other than, say, South Florida, you're going to want to put out nectar feeders in the summer for your hummingbirds.
Interest in feeding hummingbirds, one of the most beloved birds in the country, has grown tremendously. As a result, manufacturers have responded by designing a variety of nectar feeders.
Perky Pet has a wide variety of capacities. We have small capacity nectar feeders and larger capacity nectar feeders, depending on the backyard birder's needs. There's 2 basic methods to filling a hummingbird feeder. You have a bottom fill feeder, which you fill from the bottom, and then you invert to hang. Perky Pet also has a top fill feeder that has a wide opening mouth that makes it easy to pour and reduces spilling.
When attracting seed-eating birds to your yard with feeders, many birders oftentimes experience problems with squirrels stealing the seed.
Now generally, because they are tree squirrels, hanging a feeder from a tree is about the worst place you can hang one to keep squirrels away. So, placing a feeder on a pole out in the middle of an open area, at least 10 feet radius from something that the squirrels can jump from or drop from, like a power line or a tree branch, is very useful. You can also put squirrel baffles on a pole that's going to keep them from climbing up the pole and getting to the feeder. Now, in certain situations, people don't always have that area to put a pole-mounted feeder, so you can buy specific feeders that are designed to be squirrel-proof or squirrel-resistant.
So your first line of defense should be a feeder with a metal cap and metal ports. Secondly, you also have available cage feeders. Cage feeders have a cage around them with a tube inside, and this prevents the squirrels from damaging the ports as well and chewing on the openings. Another line of defense is a metal feeder. This prevents damage all around. And then the most common squirrel-proof feeder is a weight-activated squirrel-proof feeder. In this one, the squirrel jumps on the feeder, and the cage around the feeder actually lowers over the seed ports and keeps the squirrels from damaging the feeder and stealing your seed.
Another key in creating a bird-friendly backyard is to ensure feeders are well stocked and clean throughout all the seasons.
One of the things you really need to do with bird feeders is to clean them regularly. And I would say at least once a month. You can use some non-toxic products such as vinegar and water, some citrus cleaners, non-toxic soaps, and then rinse them very well. Let them air dry before you put seed back in there. Keeping the area clean is also very important. So you can remove some of the excess shells that build up underneath feeders if you're feeding sunflower seed. Occasionally rake out the area because birds that tend to congregate around feeders will also, their droppings will build up underneath feeders. So it's a good idea to try to clean that out as much as possible. Bird baths, it's also critical that you keep your bird baths clean.
There are many thoughts as to why feeding wild birds is so popular. Attracting wild birds to your backyard is a great way to experience wildlife in an up-close and personal setting. It's much like gardening. You plant that beautiful flower to add color. Attracting wild birds does the same thing, and you're attracting song in your backyard. There's something so awesome about seeing that first hummingbird hit your feeder in the spring. And also, having a goldfinch in your backyard, it also gives us a sense of stewardship. We're truly giving back by feeding nature.
For more information on backyard bird feeding, visit perkypet.com or aba.org.